Good morning. Good morning. It's a beautiful morning. Good morning. Hello, hello. Here we are. Jimbo time. Matthew, welcome. Alejandro. Yes. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good evening. Doing well. Finn, let's go. Hiya from Belgium. Hello, Kev, Anthony, Gonter. Hello from Toronto. Hey, United Canadians. And thank you, Matt, for being members so far. You're working up. You've got that silver Lissandro, Matt. So soon you'll get the gold one, and there'll be the other one. Catching us live. Yes, Brian, Issa, Max, Shahesh, Riley. Good to see you all. It's December. The mustache is gone. The mustache is gone. Nobody had commented yet, which is good, I think. Must not be missing it very much. Michael, Money Mouse. Hey, Money Mouse, I got an email from you. I'll get back to you, okay? Just by the way, I'll get back to you, okay? Let's talk about Academy Kids. You know, I want to do something with that, but yes, I will. Watching this while at work, great. Wherever you are. Am I scared by Arsenal? No, not really. From Africa, address the Pletty guy? Yeah, I will. Mustaches should be permanent. Rich, Charlie, Anthony, good to see you. Yeah, the keeper thing, we could talk about that too. I know, Matthew, I know, but so yesterday, okay, I'll give you a little story like last night, because I was thinking, should I just keep it for longer and wait and see? And then yesterday I was eating grilled cheese and tomato soup, and like it was in like a kind of like a little bowl, and every time I was eating the soup, it was getting all over my mustache, and I thought, this is disgusting. So I can't deal with that. When it hits that length, when I start eating and like soups and liquids and things are just like constantly getting in the mustache, I cannot stand that. It's so gross to me. It's so gross to me. It's my own mustache, you know, but it grosses me out. I can't deal with it. I can't. It just doesn't work for me. I drinking water going down the side of, yeah, that kind of stuff. I know you gotta like trim it and like do all that, but that wasn't the point. Wasn't the point. Yesterday's podcast was interesting. Comrade Phil a bit more on the emotional side, but you paint a clear picture of how things. Yeah, that was kind of the point. That was for sure the point. I don't want to manicure my mustache. I'd rather just do just shave it all to the stubble. I would much rather just shave it all to the stubble, for sure. Okay, let's see. Just get a few more people going in here, and then we will get into all of the stuff I want to discuss. I've got a lot on the cards for today. No, I don't like growing this part out. Like I have in the past, but not since I was much younger, and I didn't really like it. Before we get started, I just wanted to make a special mention, you know, on the, you know, news yesterday that the boys at Stretford Paddock let us know that Abdullah from there had passed away. I got to know Abdullah over the course of this year. He reached out to me at the start of the year to speak. We ended up talking regularly, you know, messages and calls and voice notes, things like that, pretty regularly up through summer. And he was a really, really wonderful guy, really nice, really inviting. You know, not everybody has been extremely welcoming in this space for United fans, from people, you know, like myself, not from the area, not from the UK and all of that. And he was just an absolutely amazing person. a wonderful person who was so kind, so helpful, and I considered a friend, and I hope to meet. And yeah, I just really sad to hear of his passing. And definitely, my thoughts, condolences, all of that are with his family, and with the guys at Paddock, because a lot of them have been friends with him for a long, long time, and surely saw him as a part of their family. And I think it's a great loss for us as people, and as United fans, of somebody, in this community of all of ours that we are all a part of. And so, I just wish the best for him, for his family, and for everybody. And hopefully meet again in another time and place. So just wanted to mention that first before we get into everything else. So yeah, I know that many of you have probably gotten to know who he was over the course of time as well. All right. Yeah, so let's get into everything else now, and talk about what we want to discuss on today's video. Okay, so let's see what I have in the plans today. Let's move it onto this here. I want to talk about Amorim and some of his of what he's doing as it relates to transfers. We'll talk about Ahmad. We'll talk about the sales and the finance and some of the ticket issues as well. And then we will talk about transfers, and we will get into the yapping portion of today's video. So let's do that. Just give me 1 second. Okay, here we go. All right. So, on the Amorim side of things, obviously, one of the main, right now, one of the reasons I wanted to make this video today, why I wanted to talk about all this is because you're seeing, like, I think it's 15 players linked to us today, linked to us at this point in time over the last month by a certain journalist in Germany. I think it's up to 15 now. I think there's been 4 in just the last day. I don't know what to say about all of that. This one guy is competing with that entire transfer chart that I made at the end of last year, or the start of last year. Give me 1 second. All right, sorry about that. Happens a lot. Okay, so yeah, so there's been a ton of names being linked, but the vast majority of them, I would say, like I said, you get this whole like we did our whole transfer chart at the end of last season. And it's got like the links from every journalist and thing that I consider to be somewhat viable, as well as my own. And it was and we're competing with that already, and it's only December. So yeah, a lot on that list. A lot of them, look, there are a lot of names that United are following. That's where it's kind of like, there's a lot of names that United do follow. So it's like there's truth in some of these things, but there's a hell of a lot less than that. 28 days till the window opens, we link to 100 by 1st of January. Yeah, for sure. And so, again, one of the biggest things right now where I would say that a lot of stuff, there's a lot of getting ahead of themselves on reports and things like that is that there's a whole lot of assessments to be done. Is Kone still viewed as an academy signing or a first team? We don't really know yet, but they want him into first team training by the end of the year. That's my understanding. Regardless, Amorim's major job here has been, ahead of all of this, and one of the reasons, why he's played so many players and rotating and things like that, is to get an idea of who fits into the team, right? Who fits into the team, what he needs and what he doesn't need. What positions are the most dire, what are the, these are these big assessments that I was talking about, and he's still making them. It's still too soon to say that, based on Amorim's time there so far, that there is a specific need as of yet that, or a bunch of them. So United are watching a whole lot of players. They're watching a whole lot of players. They keep watching a whole lot of players, and I'm going to go through a lot of them in the transfer section of this video. But the needs are sort of not 100% defined yet. Now, as of the last time I spoke, it was my understanding that they were looking in the defensive area and the midfield, and it wasn't totally understood yet whether it'd be a balance of like deep midfielders to attacking midfielders, but they're looking at a lot of them. I do not find as of yet that striker is something that they're pursuing right now and going after. A lot of that is going to depend on Xerxes, who just scored 2 goals, in his first start, if I'm not mistaken, for Amorim. He just scored 2 goals and had easily the best game since he's arrived in the Premier League in a great win. Looked like a really good player. And that's why I said, look, calling out and saying, we need a striker. United are buying a striker. United are starting talks for a striker. No, they haven't. Because we have Rasmus Højlund, we have Joshua Xerxes, and we have Marcus Rashford. 5 goals in 3 games out of those 3 players in that number 9 position. And that assessment was still being made by Amorim, and he wants to see how he can get on with all of them. So it's not a position of desperation at all for United. We'll see where we are by summer with that, closer to summer for sure. And yeah, Cheetah Obi Martin in the pipeline as well. Good point there too. Xerxes scored 2, but his overall play was legit. The touches, quick passes, etc. It was a good all-round performance. So it gives you something different to Højlund and something different, obviously, to Rashford in that position, too, when Xerxes can play. And we need Cheeto to get in there, right? And so we've got a lot of players in a lot of positions now, and it's really about assessing it. You can kind of tell where we don't have it. Halftime oranges, Gyökeres will move in the summer, but it won't be to us. I agree. I think Arsenal are a big shout for Gyökeres in the summer. Big shout. Yeah, well, Rashford, I'm saying he wasn't at 9 when he scored these 2 goals, but I'm saying as the starting 9, it's 5 out of the 8 goals, so that's pretty good. So yeah, I mean, look, I don't think it's like a necessity or viewed as a necessity at all. So a lot of it's getting ahead of itself there. We're not going to go and we want to judge players, right, how they're doing and make that kind of assessments. We don't necessarily need a striker. We may need other forwards, all things considered and depending. But I think it's more likely we will see, what we will see slightly different views on the players that we are looking for. And I see a much more need in the midfield as well as in the back line than I do anywhere else at this point in time. At this point in time. And that's the point, Dave. It's true. Yeah, like it was fluid. And at times in that game, Rashford was the most forward, but that's okay. That's fine too. And that reduces the need for it. There's a lot of assessments still being made. Amorim has not decided on all of these things yet, but he is a guy who his focus will be on getting as many as he can up into as best as they can perform right now, right? And you can already see his kind of decisions, right? Certain things are already coming through. Like number 1, he can obviously see that Eriksen, wasn't even selected. I think Eriksen and Evans weren't even selected. And when we have a fit and healthy team, there's a lot of players who are going to miss out if you think about it. Like you think about that last squad. Let's just looking at this really quickly, and this kind of tells you. And I'm not saying you want to have you want to have a position where you can leave out some players, but when you look at it, we had in the last team Maguire, Mount, Garnacho, Shaw, Ugarte, Bayindir, Højlund, Malacia, and Antony on the bench. When Yoro comes back, we're going to drop another person out of that, right? You could kind of guess who it might be, but that's with Evans, Eriksson not even there, right? But we have a very fit team. You know, our team is getting back into everybody being available, which is a good sign. But yeah, look, you can see who's kind of on the outs based on that, right? And that's with the 0 academy kids, right? On the bench, 0, which is something we like to do more often than not, right? And there's going to be players that are going to start to come through and need to get into that bench as well, right? So there's too many players. You know, there's players you can see that, you know, Evans and Eriksson are probably not in the plans for the long term, right? But I'll talk about that more in a minute. Anyway, you can kind of see what we need and where we need to go, and it's just down to age. But Amorim's had a lot of time to assess players so far, but it still needs a lot more as we get into it. And I would say they won't really formalize any decisions about specifically who they go for in January until closer to January, maybe even right up to it, even though plans are being laid down, which I'll discuss. I can also say Amorim is a big fan of a number of players. I told you beforehand during the week, you know, the training week, that he'd had discussions with a few players, and he was very interested, very, very encouraged by a few that he really liked. Diallo, obviously one of them. I told you he had discussions about playing wingback with people, and Diallo was one of those. And he's played wingback every game since. I think that it's his best position as of now, where he's most impactful. And until we get someone like Yoro in the back line and we can add the talent throughout the team, he will just continue there. He's a big fan of Mason Mount, big fan of Marcus Rashford. Has a, you know, anyway, he likes a lot, big fan of Luke Shaw as well. So there's a lot of players that Amorim has really liked working with so far and sees a lot in. And you can see it in the returns, right? A lot of players are starting to really get it, So you know, I think very soon, and this is what I want to say about Arsenal, where we're going to get a big hint here on certain things. I think he recognizes the occasion that is Arsenal, and he will still have to rotate. Like there's some players like Ahmad, right, who is obviously in his best 11 that I think he will pick for Arsenal, but he, as he said, he's going to have to take him off at 60 minutes or so, just from a fitness standpoint, because they're retired. So we'll see there. I think he'll learn quickly. If he doesn't do this, I think he'll regret it, but I think he will do it. Is that in games like Arsenal, even though it's early, even though we're still doing this a lot of rotation, you got to pick your best team now, you know, for Arsenal. And I think at least that's what he'll do. I don't know yet, but I think at least that's what we will do. Either way, there's a lot of games coming, and yeah. A lot of games coming, and these are big games as well. So we'll see what he does with that. Yeah, Yoro, I don't believe he will be ready to start for sure. But in the best 11 now, if you had to ask, we kind of had this debate, and we'll do a vote tomorrow morning before the game in the pre-match. Yeah, because we'll do another one on Friday, so we'll start early and do a vote, but. You know, in his best 11, we've a lot of back and forth. But if you take those first 3, you're probably thinking Højlund, Rashford, Mount probably, and then Bruno and Ugarte deep, I would assume. But I'm not sure. You know, I don't know between Mount, Bruno, and Kobbie Mainoo, who hasn't played that much yet, which 2 of the 3 would play. But I think Rashford and Højlund would be nailed on into his first 11. And then it would be, you know, Ahmad, Mazraoui, I think De Ligt, and then I don't know, Shaw or Lissandro, I'm not sure. I'm not sure yet. And then it would probably be Diallo on left. Yeah, Mainoo can't play. I was just saying in his best 11. And Lissandro suspended too, so Shaw, right? But So yeah, Bruno deep, Mount forward with that's what if he's picking his best 11, what's available for Arsenal, then it would be Højlund, Rashford, Mount, Bruno, Ugarte, Ahmad, Diallo, Shaw, De Ligt, Mazraoui, right? That's the and Onana, of course. That's the team. If he's going with what he would see as of now as his best 11 that's available. For sure. That's the obvious best 11 as of now, in my opinion, pretty clearly. So yeah, but it still gives you decent off the bench, right? It still gives you decent off the bench. So anyway, yeah, he's got more assessments to make, and then we'll see what he picks against Arsenal. We're already getting some clues, and I'll talk about sales and finance as it relates to that. Amad Diallo obviously has been a great performer, so far for us this season, especially since Amorim has really come in. And you saw some stuff like from Fabrizio saying that there's progress on a new contract. You know, if you recall, before summer, I made mention that there was talk now of a new deal for Ahmad getting started. It was held up. It was stalled. And I can say with some fair certainty that as of 4 to 6 weeks ago, I had severe doubts that Ahmad would stay and would sign a new contract because essentially he did not feel wanted. You know, he did not feel that he had an understanding of what he needed to do to get into the team, to perform, to be a part of this team. And you could see that, and I mentioned that a few times, but you could see that in that, I think it was like the last game that Ten Hag managed, or close to the last game, his face, you know, that kind of went around when he was being subbed on, and how unhappy he looked in comparison to what has come since then. Yeah, it was obvious, but he really did not want to stay with that. And it wasn't like he didn't want to stay at United. It was that he did not feel he was wanted. Yeah, Fenerbahce away, I think it was, yeah. And he did not feel he was wanted. And that was shitty, yeah. But since then, you know, he stayed behind during the break to work with Ruben Amorim and to do as much as he could. Amorim really likes him. He fits into his versatility. He's a player that's willing to do anything that it takes, and you can see that showing up. And so I'm positive they will do a new contract now, because he would love to stay at United. It's not about not wanting to stay at United or anything like that. He always did want to stay at United, but he did not feel that he was wanted by the people, you know, here, you know, to stay at United. So, you know, that's the main kind of issue or concern there that there was. So you know, anyway, that's what was going on at that point in time. As it pertains to that, so I'm sure he will get a new contract soon. The timing of that, I'm not sure, but you never know. Sometimes they just announce it later, but I'm sure he will get that soon, and that will happen. Sales and finance. So there's a couple of situations here. Obviously, you know, there's a lot of debate right now going around, a lot of discussion with myself, you know, with Phil, with everybody on the whole ticket thing that's going on. Understandably, people are upset, all of that as well. You know, the issue that United have at this point in time is that they've lost an enormous amount of money, you know, over the last few years. Kind of essentially before Ineos have come in, they've lost an enormous amount of money. The financial situation was bad. We've seen the cuts on expenses and things like that across the board, right? Everywhere that they can, in terms of these things, as well as, of course, Ineos and Sir Jim putting the 300 million into the club as of now. It's a difficult situation because United essentially are a non-viable business, and a big part of that is also performance, right? You have a few ways of raising revenues. Number one, you know, obviously ticket sales is one. Two, TV deals and viewership. Obviously, those deals usually stay for quite a period of time, but, you know, how much you get out of them has to do with, you know, how much you get out of them obviously has to do with, of course, performance as well, in terms of your share of TV for you know, for Premier League, for Champions League, for all of that. Dominic Tannenbaum play with patterns and we score goals. Shocking. I know, incredible, right? And then there's also, you know, then there's sponsorship deals and things like that. as well. Then there's the City way, which is to inflate those sponsorship deals. And then there's obviously things like player sales and such, which you can get selling academy products, things like that, where you're getting a profit on them can help. That's one of the ways. Obviously, Chelsea do a lot of business, and City too in that respect, is to raise it there. So United have a little bit of an issue with this, right? Because it's been bad. Champions League is worth a lot of money. Champions League is worth a lot of money. And then, Champions League is worth a lot of money and they need it. And so right now, I understand the situation that they're in is rather difficult in the short term, which is that how do I put this right? Without Champions League at the end of this year, with the costs that have been necessary to make the changes with the manager and all that, and frankly, it didn't cost that much more than if they'd done it in summer. It just they couldn't afford to do it on the PSR before the 30th. So it didn't really make that big of a difference, except that we had just had a really bad start to the season, which doesn't help. If we don't get Champions League with those extra costs associated and things like that, it's definitely going to be a hugely limiting factor on next summer and on our spending and on our capabilities. And then you have this kind of snowballing problem of like, can we build up to the level that we need performance-wise? How do we get back into the Champions League if we can't spend to get into the Champions League, if we can't buy the players to get into it? And it's sort of, this ever-repeating issue that we have. That's kind of where the standing is now. So, as far as January goes, they would like to have the ability to make some deals where they see the biggest necessity. My understanding is and has been that might be in the midfield as well as at left wing back. That could be considered a winger, I guess. Under Amorim, the profile of that player might change a little bit. But if you think about it, so if you recall a couple months, maybe it was a month, 2 months ago, 6 weeks, 8 weeks ago, I did one of these videos and I talked about how they were exploring the potential for Casemiro and Eriksen to leave in January. And that if they could move them on to get more money coming in and get those wages off, because the wages are a huge factor. Those players on big wages, huge, huge factor in being able to move that forward, makes a difference. So a big problem, Jake, is 20 million on the manager. Because it's not amortized, 22, 23 million in terms of costs. I think it's 24 million in the end to move Ten Hag off and bring in Amorim and such, and the costs associated with that. That's the equivalent of over 100 million in transfer spending. So it's not like they couldn't spend in summer. I'm not saying we couldn't do any deals in summer. And again, you'd have the expiring amounts of some players coming off, but effectively you wouldn't have space beyond your sell to buy situation again, right? So getting the wages of Eriksen off, if you were able to move Casemiro, if you're able to move anybody else, that would help. But the problem as well is that with Evans leaving, Lindelof leaving, Eriksen leaving, you have to make signings. So it reduces the flexibility quite a bit, especially if we also then miss out on Champions League. It reduces it quite a bit. Now, another thing to be seen is how far we can progress in these cups this year, right? Because those are tickets, TV money, all of that you get from it. But in January, they would like to be able to make some deals. They would. And again, as I said, two of the things that they looked at that could make a big difference are Eriksen and Casemiro. Because their wages are so big, if they could move them earlier, then you're taking, essentially you're covering the cost of transfers by letting them go just on moving those wages out from an amortization standpoint, so that you could spend without necessarily increasing the budget this year. So that's a big potential priority. They've been looking at it for most of the season, and it's an area I think they believe that they need some more that they need more in. But if they can move them on, some of the main names they'd be looking at moving is Eriksen, Casemiro, and Antony in January if possible. I think Casemiro would be kind of at the bottom of that in one sense because he's useful. And it's not like he can't be, they don't see that he can be played or anything. He's been playing. But he's on such a big contract and all that. If the opportunity arose to sell him and a team came in, that they would definitely look at that. So that's a part of this whole thing, is they're trying to essentially scrounge together as much money as possible. And it may not seem like a lot, I understand, but as much money as possible to help the PSR situation, because ideally they want to be able to make a move if needed to get us into Champions League. I mean, it can make, especially with the new format, it can make a 50, 60 million difference to our PSR situation getting into Champions League versus not. And so I understand the frustration of it, the difficulty of it, even as it pertains. It seems like it's so little, the ticket thing, and it is. But that's the worry, is that, how can they work this out? How can they work this out to be able to do what is necessary and try to get into Champions League, because they need it, to make up for the cost of having to replace the manager, all these kinds of things that have happened. They need it. And obviously replacing the manager was a spend of 23, 24 million. They said, we got to do this. It's going to give us a good chance to get us into the Champions League. And so it was worth it if it works out, but they want to give themselves as much room and potential as possible to do that. And maybe we need a transfer to make that happen. So we'll see, right? We will see if that can happen. We'll see if they pull that off. I think Champions League is certainly possible. That's the thing. It is within touching distance. We are in the Europa League. We're capable of getting there in the league. And if signing one player could help make that happen, then whatever they got to do financially to accommodate that, they kind of feel like they've got to do. That's essentially how I get it. That's essentially how I get it. On the whole Diallo situation here, right? That's an interesting one. It is true that, Trent Alexander-Arnold is, I think, excuse me, more likely to stay at Liverpool, even beyond this year. Madrid are looking at fullbacks. They have followed Diallo in the past. They have followed him in the past. They have looked at that situation before. I don't know if they're going to make an offer or anything like that. I don't really know at all. But yeah, an interesting thing there is you take like Tchouaméni, for example. Now, I'm not saying we could afford to lose Diallo and not get a wing back in this situation. But it's just interesting, if there was something in that where we need more deep midfielders, could there be something possible there? I don't know. But the interest from United has been there in Tchouaméni at times in the past, and he could potentially leave Madrid. And they have some interest in that. So it's just something to think about. I don't think that definitely is more erring on the side of speculation than anything else. But that's just the situation with United at this point in time, that they do need to and have a focus on trying to bring in as much money as possible. No doubt about that. And seeing if there's anything they can do to give them a better chance of getting into the Champions League at the end of this year. So they're still looking at that as they were before, potentials for if those players can go or anything like that. Moving on to transfers, there's a lot of names that are genuine. In the left back situation, I've been talking about Kirkes for a while. Fabrizio seems to keep mentioning Kirkes as well as a potential name for us. Aït-Nouri Davies Gutierrez is a really interesting one. And it is interesting because Madrid have a buyback on him. Now, whether he wants to return to Madrid, we don't know. They have a very cheap buyback on him, though. So maybe that solves their problem. I'm not sure. Maybe they don't want him back. Maybe he doesn't want to go back. I don't know. We have a buyback on Alvaro Fernandez. There's been this talk of Patrick Dorgu, right? I've seen a lot of people getting really excited about him as a player. I don't think at the moment there's anything more than United keeping an eye on him. They are expanding their look at a lot of players for the positions of need and making that big list. Now, if you recall, you'll remember I've described this most years as we get closer to like February, March, that the way United tend to do business, and this is true of most clubs, but the way that transfers are done is at the start of the year, they'll have, okay, these are all the positions we're kind of thinking we might need. All of them. Too many. More than they likely want to get. And they start building out these really, really big lists. Really, really big lists. Like 10, 12 players from each position and start to watch them and look at them and all of that. And then they look at them and start to say, okay, which ones are we actually, do we like after scouting? And usually this only happens in like January, February. They narrow them down. They start contacting the ones they like. And then and finding out their situation. Are they willing to move? What's going on in that? Is there players that they like? And they narrow it down to like 4 or 5. And then moving into March and April, they dive further in to find out the costs, see who would be more viable, all of that, and narrow it down to like their top 1, 2, 3 for each kind of position and what positions they want. So we're in the time of year where they're still potentially looking at 10, 12 players for these positions that are not all genuine options in the long term. Now, if you want to transfer in January, obviously you have to speed that up and figure that out a little bit quicker. And it kind of changes the process a little bit. But at the end of the day, there's like as well some young players in the midfield, like, Nipan, Mastantuono, etc., that are potentially, their summer is January. So are you going to move for one of them? Do you see that as a bigger need? We really still don't know in that respect. But those are a lot of the players that I know that there's been interest in. Aitnori, Kirkus, Davies, Gutierrez, Dorgu, Alvaro, Fernandez at the left back position, or that have at least been watched. There's probably more than that, funnily enough. But I wouldn't go so far as to make the claims like United are actively involved in trying to sign them yet or anything like that. That's where that would say that would be incorrect. There's a few that they've had contact with and have progressed, like Kirkes, where they'd actually had more contact with, and that's why it keeps being mentioned, but that doesn't mean they've actually made the move to sign him as of yet. In the midfield, I've mentioned Chouameni Zubimendi, a name that was linked to us in the last few days that does have some genuineness to it is Hugo Larsson, a young Swedish player, I believe. They were following him before last winter, maybe, when he made a transfer. They were following him, looking at him. Interesting player, more of a box-to-box type of 8. So, it could play in one of the deeper 2 positions, 6'2", big player. I haven't really followed him or watched much about him, but United were interested at this point, last year, or at some point they had been following him in the recent time, and PJ Berger, who is a good journalist in Germany, recently linked us to him. Again, that somebody that we're following. So I would keep that one in mind as well. Then we've got if we go for, if we decide, okay, we need more like forward midfielders, some of this will depend on Mount and Adam Wharton. Yeah, Adam Wharton in there, Hayden Hackney, the ones I've mentioned before, right? But not right now. I don't think either of those are options at this point, like today, or anytime soon. But certainly we'll see how they get by the end of the year. If we decide we need more attacking ones, and I think some of this depends on things like Mason Mount. Can he stay healthy? Does he get into form? Joshua Zirkzee, does he get into form? Does Rashford get into form? All of that. Then you've got Chris Rigg. Tillman was linked to us recently. Very, very good player in the Dutch league, apparently. Good, interesting fit for that. You've got Mastantuono and Nipan also for these positions as well. And there's probably other wingers. And then Quenda could potentially fall into this too, in one way or another, in that he can play at right wing back, he can play at 10. If he plays at right wing back, it pushes Ahmad into the attacking 10 position. So either way, it gives you another 10, another winger, another option up there. So we add Quenda to this, but obviously that would potentially be one for summer. And again, everybody's kind of following him. So I'm not convinced that we will make that move as of yet. I'm not hearing much on strikers myself in terms of, I'm sure they're watching them like Gyökeres, like delap these rumors, these talk, but I don't think as of now it's a priority at all. I've maintained that that's still, from what I'm hearing, is not viewed as a priority. So these other names would be more of a priority, at this point in time. Anthony Robinson I haven't heard much about him recently. I think he's a little bit older and very expensive is the issue, at this point. But I think almost impossible to get someone like Robinson in the January window. Now, Tyler Dibbling is an interesting one too. Young player, because Jason Wilcox really knows him and likes him a lot. I think that there's a definite reason to add him onto our list and thoughts as well as one of these potential forwards. I think it's more likely we sign like a midfielder and a forward and move out Eriksson and Anthony between January and summer than anything else. And then, as well as obviously making a signing in that side. So we'll see there, right? But so this, I'm listing off a bunch of names for all of these positions that I know that United have been watching, but it doesn't mean that these are ones that they're going to be signing and trying to just go through some of the links that are out there and see, where's there some validity. There's probably others as well. And like I said, I can only share from my perspective that I have not heard of United like making any movements really towards trying to sign a striker at this point. That there's been a lot more look at the left side, the midfield, and a forward, but not necessarily and like a right-sided forward, but not necessarily in other positions as of yet. Obviously, I think center back will be something there. I believe Maguire, they'll keep him, and it would help. But it will also depend if Shaw ends up permanently converting into that center back or not, right? As well. And that's one factor we don't really know in yet, but it's also injuries can matter there too. So anyway, yeah, moving on from all of that, moving on from all of that, there's a lot to do, but it's an interesting time because of Amorim and his assessments, right? It's an interesting time because of Amorim and his assessments of everything. And where that takes us moving forward, and we just can't know yet. And nobody can. That's the thing. Nobody can know exactly what we want as of yet. In these positions until we see more and get to play more and all of that. Oh, and then the keeper thing is interesting, right? Because I did say in the recent video that United were looking at keepers at they looked at James Trafford, who's not going to join, by the way, but they looked at him. I think I made that clear. He's not going to join, but they had been looking at keepers. One of the Plettenberg things, I guess, was about keepers and a target or Bayindir wanting to leave. Maybe that's the reason why. I don't really particularly know. I do know that he was unhappy with his playtime. He made that comment publicly. I think his agent did or something last year. So that's not like necessarily inside knowledge. He still hasn't played a lot. So that would not surprise me at all. It would not surprise me at all if that were the case, and that's why we're looking at keepers, but we have been looking at keepers. So, yeah, that's the other position there. So, yeah, that's what I've got for this. It's early. I've got to chase up a whole bunch of stuff to kind of form this all up because this is all very, like, what's the word for it? Like, mushy at the moment. I don't know. It's very mushy. Like, it's a lot of people we're looking at where I don't feel confident in like who we're actually going for as of yet. And I wouldn't put myself forward to say that I know, on that, but I do know that they have not made concrete moves on a few players as of yet, where it's been put more advanced than it is for sure. As of this point in time, and as I understand it, striker is one of those positions where I don't believe that they've made any sort of solid moves yet. And they're not decided to make solid moves in that position as of yet. There's a lot of other areas that are looking more like a priority. And again, they're still looking at, especially in the midfield, where they don't really have a lot of options. Ugarte, Menu, and maybe Bruno, but Eriksson leaving at the end of the year, on big wages. Casemiro up in years and obviously not part of the long-term plans. That is an area of need for sure. So we'll see where this goes. Like I said, I'm just trying to share everything early on this that I can in terms of the thought process that goes into all of this. But also, again, a big thought will be, how do we raise funds to be able to do what we need and decide what is the biggest position that could help us get over the line even this season, but without saying that it's not a long-term decision too, because it must be someone we want now and for the long term. That is really important as well, that it's someone that we want for the future. It's not just about today. Yeah, that's important. So as well, that it's not just about today, but when we're making a signing, that it's about the future. That's really vital. Yeah. Ornstein linked this. Yeah, he did, but he did not say we were making a move on it yet. He did not say we were making a move on it yet or anything like that. Just that it's something we could. And then again, I would say that we're going to have to wait till summer more. I mean, Diallo is not going to leave in January, and he'd be absurdly expensive at that time. And by summer, we'll be able to say whether those assessments have been made. So it's not that I'm saying we couldn't make a move for a striker, but if Xerxes is scoring goals and Højlund is scoring goals, why would we make a move for a striker by summer? It's really going to be about that. And so that's why I'm just saying it's too early to know. And that's why I think that people like Ornstein have been careful to beyond saying like there's some following, there's some interest, but in terms of actually making those concrete moves, like I said, at this time of year, you're following a ton of players, but saying we're making moves for them in a lot of cases is presumptuous. A lot of cases would be presumptuous, and I don't want to do that either. Okay, so moving on to Yap. Yeah, I don't see the point of Delap. It's another young, promising striker. We need experience. Well, for sure, we have enough. Yeah, Leny Yoro should be in the squad, right? Leny Yoro should be in the squad. He's traveling to London with the Manchester United squad to face Arsenal. So he's traveling. Amorim said he's with the squad. He's a good chance to be in. He should be fine. Like I said in the last thing, it's not that he's injured. It's just they're being careful, and that's great. That's good. It's good to see. Hopefully he gets some minutes, especially with Lissandro suspended. I would suspect if we can that, one of De Ligt or Shaw or someone will come off for Maguire and Yoro at some point during the game. Maybe even that can move Mazraoui up and Yoro can slide into that right center back spot. So I guess we will see. I really doubt he will start. But that's awesome. That's really good to see that he's kind of coming up. He's coming with us, and that he is, in fact, very likely to be in the team. That is really, really, really good news. I think he will come on against Arsenal. Yeah, I think he will. Who from the academy do you think makes a leap into the first team? Who? I mean, obviously, like who is the most? I don't know. I honestly don't know. Obi Martin is the obvious one. I don't think Dan Gore will get into it. Like I said in the last thing, it's not to play down the youth or to put them down or anything like that. But the leap is so big and I think that more players should go on loan first. I think that almost everybody we're talking about should go on loan. That's my thought. I think that there's players going direct in from the academy is something really hard to do in a team that's trying to be competitive soon. I think almost all of them should go on loan. Look what it did for Ahmad going to Sunderland, right? If the stronger we get, the harder it'll be for players to go directly in. I think that they should go on loan. That's what I think. That's what I think. That if we could send some players on loan to the championship and all of that, then we would do better. And I think the under 18s have a lot of the best talents, but that means at 18 they should be going on loan. And then we see them for a year or two in senior football to get adjusted. It's so hard to make that leap and to really assess who can make it beyond that. Because I don't know that there's anybody. Obi Martin is maybe the closest, but again, it might just be because he's so big and so advanced for his age. There's nobody, in my opinion, there's nobody who's been like Kobbie Mainoo, where you knew it for the 5 years that he's going straight into that team and you could see it. That's not to say that there's not good players who won't make it. I'm just saying I don't myself see anything that obvious right now beyond maybe Obi Martin, but I think we need to loan players more and at 18 and give them that chance. We can't do business with Nice, remember? Because of the Europa ruling. We can't do business with Nice. I don't think my opinion is wrong. It's not about not watching enough of the academy. I don't think my opinion is wrong. Every 3 years this happens. Every 3 years this happens, right? That we get linked, that everybody goes crazy about a big crop of youth and then they disappear. And then they don't get in. And it happens all the time. And I'm not trying to play it down. Did we get linked to another Milambo from Feyenoord? That's 16. Oh my God. Okay. Look, he's an attacking midfielder, so we'll see, right? Yeah, I mean, at least it's in a position where I think that we would see, but good Lord, that is a lot of players. I mean, it's impressive if he's getting if it turns out they're all correct and Plettenberg is correct on all of these, exclusives that United are following, and Vivel's just like in his ear giving him every single player. So be it, man. The leap from the academy level, again, it's not to the Premier League. It's the academy level to the top of the Premier League. It's a really, really big leap. It's a really, really big leap. So, every time this happens, and so it's not about, I'm not insisting that anybody won't make it, but I think it would be incredibly presumptuous to say that there are any players that are for sure going to make it at the level that we want. You think every academy goes 18 months unbeaten? No, but not for the reason that you think. One of the reasons that that's a lot of teams loan their players out. Rather than having a very strong youth team is not necessarily a good thing. Okay? It's not necessarily a good thing, right? You don't necessarily want your youth team to be incredibly strong. You want to loan them. And then you don't want your youth team to be that strong. You want your best youth players to be gone, to be out on loan soon, as soon as they're able to. You want them getting senior football. Joel, thank you for the donation. If you had something you wanted to say, make sure to send a message. But thank you for that. I appreciate it. It's not. I'm not downplaying them because there's a lot of talented players. But nothing anyone can do at the under 18 level is a guarantee of success at the Premier League level, at the top of the Premier League level. It's just not. It just isn't. It doesn't matter. Look, just want to say you're a beautiful man, James. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Joel. Look, Lamine Yamal is 17 years old, right? I'm not saying that everybody has to be that good, but my point is that's how good you have to be for it to be a guarantee. Look at what Wayne Rooney was doing at 16, 17. Look at what Lamine Yamal was doing at 16, 17, all of that. Unless they're doing that, it's not a guarantee. We've had 16-year-olds doing amazing things, okay? We have. Thanks, Joe. We've had that. We've had that. Mason Greenwood was one. Nobody is performing as good as Mason Greenwood was at 16. That's the truth. There's no individual who's even as close to as good as Mason Greenwood was performing at the youth level right now. None. Okay? That's the truth. Like it or not, I don't like it. It's the truth. Okay? And that was how good he had to be to go right into the first team without a loan. You understand? That's sort of my point. The bar is extremely high. I'm not saying Yamal is the norm for players making it. I'm saying they have to be that good for you to be 100% sure they're going to make it, right? Having doubts is normal. And you know, the most of the ones in that under 18 teams won't make it. Shortire, Garner, Gore, Hugel, McNeil, Angel Gomez, Tahith Chong, you know, there's plenty of others, obviously, for different reasons. You know, that just won't make it. You know, that just, you know, don't make it. It is what it is. We'll see if we can get one out of that under 18s team into the first team as a solid contributor. It's a success for United, right? It's a success for United, but sooner or later we got to get a lot of them on loans and have them getting senior football at the right time. Macmillan, loan them to France. Yeah, I think there's a lot of good places to loan them. The Championship as well, certainly a good place for that. So yeah, there's a lot more that needs to be seen on the youth level. It's I'm not doubting them. I'm not trying to play down their abilities and all that. It's just the reality of the biggest difference between, the biggest difference between the top of the Prem and the youth level. It's so big. I mean, we've had such great talents, obviously. Unizai as well. You know, obviously we've had some amazing talents over the years that haven't made it. Unizai. Given how desperate we are for money, we must be surely looking at selling the stadium naming rights for the current. No, I don't think so. It would, because nobody wants it. Nobody wants to buy naming rights for the current one. Shouldn't we sell with the buyback since the initial sell? No, because it's still complicated. I think it'd be better just to loan and then see, and then you decide to sell with buybacks like we've been doing. Yeah. Finding because we want to buy someone like Mastantuono but on a loan or own out. Yeah, but Mastantuono is playing football. Like, he's playing 31 matches in the senior level for River Plate. That's sort of, he's playing senior football. That's, you know what I mean? Like that's the difference. They've got to play senior football. You really don't know until they play senior football. And they're playing against older people with more developed, physically, all of that. You really don't know. You gotta, senior football is the test, not the youth level. The youth level is development. It's development. Youth football is for development. It's not really a test of how good you are as a player. It's all for development. That's what it's there for. Let's see. Good Lord. We'll have to make a list of all of those names and see if there's anything in it. It's all German and Dutch, which is kind of interesting. I don't think Collier is this like talent that is like gonna be viewed as a player that is gonna be the future or anything like that. I've never heard that before. What do you mean our players are unlucky that are born in England? It's all right. Yeah, there's definitely some big people out there with major doubts over all these lists from Plettenberg. I'll tell you that much. I'll just tell you that much. Yeah. Sorry, just the message I just saw was really funny. About all of that. Yeah, major grain of salt and doubt on this on these lists of players from on these 17 players from Plettenberg. Yeah. Yeah, major doubts. There's good reason to have major doubts about it. Let's just say that, okay? Anyway, yeah, let's leave it at that. Anything else that we want to talk about today? I'm going to go live in the morning tomorrow ahead of the game. I'm going to go live early. I might go live twice because what time is the game at? I have time. It's at 1:15 my time, yeah. So I'm going to go live early in the morning. We're going to vote for the squad. We're going to vote for the squad because it's a Premier League match, right? Yes. So we're going to vote for the squad, and then when the lineup comes out, we're going to see. We'll get a good, nice, able to see the squad that we voted for, discuss it, break it down, and then we will do the watch along. Yeah, so we'll go live twice. I'll go live early, like usually, the 8, 9 o'clock my time, which is like 3 or 4 o'clock UK time, and then we'll go at 7 p.m. before the game, somewhere around there. So I'll be back tomorrow for 2 lives for that. And then Thursday, I'm going to do a tactics live with Darnish and maybe another video as well. Obviously, the watch along as well tomorrow. God, that's a lot of shit to do. Then Friday, we'll do our normal morning live to go the pregame for the weekend. So, yeah, it's going to be a lot of videos this week. Thoughts on drawing Arsenal and FA Cup? I'm fine. I'd like us to play good teams. I like us to play good teams. I want to see it. I really don't care. I've never worried about it. I like the big games. I know we'll probably lose, and we're going to get knocked out of some cups here, but so be it. It is what it is. It is what it is. I'd rather see us play good teams. I love those games. I mean, they because the thing is if you do win, then it's like incredible, right? It's like incredible. It's special. And you can feel much more about it. Like us beating Bodo Glimt, we don't sit there and say, you know what? Yeah, we're back. Us beating Everton. Look, to be fair, if we start to string a ton of those together, then that's great. And we can start feeling like, hey, we can actually do something. But the big games are kind of like that ceiling test, like we're raising our floor and we're getting better and we're beating the teams we should beat. That's great. We need that more than anything. It's more important in a sense that we do that consistently, but then we get to test, do we have the player quality? How close or how far are we away to pulling off a win against those? And that was kind of the thing, when we win some big games, like under Ten Hag against City in the final and stuff like that, we have really good players. That's the thing. That's what tells you that. And that's what tells you even more how bad we were playing relative to our players. Because when you can win the big games, but you can't win the small ones, then you have good players, bad tactics. I think the players decide it more in the big games and the tactics decide it more in small games. Now there's exceptions to this, there's definitely exceptions to this, like playing when it's like a minnow, but when you're a big team playing another big team, it's more often player quality that makes the difference, than it is the tactics. Now, if you're a small team playing a big team, then obviously it's a tactics thing, for both sides. But if you're going toe to toe, in a lot of cases, it's really about player quality. Yeah. So yeah, I'd like to see us go all in on Europa as well. We could win Europa. We could totally win Europa. Our biggest competition there is Tottenham, right? We could win Europa. That would be the biggest thing. I don't think our goals under Amorim have been transitions. Yeah, I don't agree with that assessment. It depends what you define as a transition. Like the first goal against Ipswich was not a transition. It was from a goal kick. It was beating the press via the goal kick, running by and attacking the box quickly. Again, I use the comparison to Liverpool. What kind of team are Liverpool? They attack quickly, but that doesn't mean, is Madrid a transition team? Kind of, I guess. I don't know. there's different types of transition teams, right? Like under Oli, we were just a transition team. Under Ten Hag, we were just a transition team. That doesn't mean that we can't score otherwise. You got to use the transitions. Counter pressing and winning the ball. I'm not sure if I call that yes, that's a transition. Our goals against Bodo Glimt, I wouldn't say we're in transition, any of them. I think all three were well-worked goals. One was a press, so not in transition. It was just an error and a press win. The next two were not transitions at all. And I would say two of the goals against one was a set piece. One was off of the press. One was, I would say two. Look, you're going to score goals. Every team scores goals in transition, but I think it's when that's your only game plan is to score in transition, it becomes a problem. I think the balance under Amorim has been perfect. I think it's been perfect. Very Liverpool-like. Playing quick and direct is fine, but against Bodo Glimt, we broke down a low block. Both Højlund's goals were against a low block. Both of them. Were when they were at a low block. The set piece against Everton was when they were camped in their box too. So I think we've done okay there. I think we have. Obviously, that's going to take time to improve. But that is a tactical issue to me, not a player issue. Against the small teams, under Ten Hag, we never played low blocks. If you really look at like the last year, we didn't play low blocks. We were so bad that the small teams would come out against us, and that was our plan, was bait them to try to hit them in transition. Even against the smallest sides, we never really dominated territory and control. We need to dominate territory and control in order to even play low blocks. Like, I can't remember a game where it felt like we were playing a low block last year, because even the worst teams would come out against us because all we had was trying to score in transition. And we were so bad at controlling the game that they never got even forced into low block by us. Under Oli, I think we forced a lot of teams into deep blocks, but we couldn't score in them, and that was a tactical issue. I mean, when you look at the players that we've had, I don't think it was all transitions. When we had Cavani, Martial, Pogba, Shaw, Bruno, a lot of these players, I don't think that's necessarily a team that can't score against the low block. A lot of them have played against low blocks very often. We just didn't have the tactics right to do it, to win it, to break those teams down and to maintain what we needed to. Eventually, beating the smaller teams will come down. Yeah, well, I don't think it's overnight, but I think that's where we'll see where we need to see progress. I think player quality in those games is obviously important, but it's how you set up against them. Getting control of those games is definitely a tactical and a player quality thing. Do you have any insight into further share purchase from Ineos? Like I said, I would wait until about 18 months after, and then we'll see. So it was 6-7 more months, maybe next summer, before we start talking about anything else on that. Yeah. Anything else? Anything else anyone wants to speak about before I end today? Think we'll be priced out of a deal for Quenda? I think he's going to be real expensive. Yeah, I mean, I do. I think he's going to be really expensive. I'd be surprised if we want to spend that much there, because there's going to be a lot of competition for a player like him. A lot of competition for a player like him, for sure. Yeah. So, yeah. That's the concern. If you look at our spending habit, he's a really good player. If they think he's good enough, maybe they'll think he's like. But look at our spending last year. We kept it low. 15 million Mazraoui, 45 million. 50 million Ugarte, 40 million Delict, 35 million Xerxes. Our cost per player, Yoro, we spent a bit more, but he's viewed as like one of the best possible talents. So I think it's really depending on. I think they want to keep the spending per player low into a good number and not be spending 70, 80 million on players, because that's where you get big mistakes. Again, even like this the discussion around Xerxes, if it didn't work out, well, amortized, he's only 27 million on the books. So it's easy to not take a huge bath, financially, if you have to turn around and resell a player like that. I don't think we will. I think he's going to work out, but that's what works. That's why it's so much better in those cases. So yeah, very interesting. It is nice we rotated our number 9s. I mean, they got 2 goals. Yeah, and I'm really happy to see Rashford back to his best. I thought that the game against Everton was one of his most complete games overall. You know, the goals were good, but the overall gameplay was good as well. And I think it's nice, you know, of course it makes more sense that he performed better as a player, not as the number 9, with a player in the 9 position around him, because he's not a 9. And Amorim said that after Ipswich. So, you know, he played really well in a position that suits him. And in this narrow thing, I don't really care about the left versus right aspect of it because it's semi-fluid. They swapped even at one point. But it's narrow, and he has a player outside of him. That's the important part for me. I don't want to see Rashford out on the touchline. That doesn't make any sense. He's got Ahmad next to him. They play together so well so far, right? They've combined for goals now multiple times. The interplay is good. They do really, really good work together. That partnership is really cool and is growing. And so that's great. Xerxes Hayes been over top. I agree. Look, I think it has been for almost every performer this season because the team has been so bad. No, Anthony too. I said, yeah, the 3 players I think would most likely would be Casemiro, Eriksen, and Anthony. I think Casemiro would be at the bottom of that because he's still more useful. You know, it's just that he's on big wages. He's not worth the money we're paying for him. Casemiro is the issue, right? It's a lot of wages and he's not going to be here in the long run. You know, I'm not saying like they're trying to shove Casemiro out the door. It's just he, you know, it's definitely one financially it makes more sense if you can shift him because you could buy quite a player with the money you save there. I hope we see Quenda as a similar potential to Yoro and push the boat out to get him. Interesting. We'll see. I really like Quenda. I got to watch more. I want to see Sporting a little more without Amorim because now they've lost 2 on a break. Interesting. Any chance to bring Kavi? I don't think so, honestly. But hey, we'll see. We'll see. More to come. Let's wait for the assessments. Let's see what else happens. Let us see what else happens here. But anyway, I just wanted to ideally kind of, you know, explain everything that I see and my kind of understanding of the financial situation as it pertains to you know, the financial situation as it pertains to United, kind of why what's happening is happening, even though some of it's rather painful, and see where we go from here. Any expiring contracts could exploit like Madrid. Do you think Maguire will get an extension? I do. I think that otherwise we have to sign 2 center backs, and I don't think they'd want to do that, and he's a good leader and all that as well. Any expiring contracts we exploit like Madrid? I don't know. I'd have to look into that on these players. Obviously, there's like Davies on our list that we talked about, but I don't know of anybody else. When everyone's fit, do you think Mazraoui will still be right center back or Yoro? I think it'll be Yoro. The thing with Mazraoui is it's kind of like I think he's so good wherever we put him, he'll be good as long as it's not at the 10. So like it's not like if you want to increase the quality of the team, you got to put both in, but, you know, move Mazraoui into, I think, a wingback position, which is even more influential, and I think he'd have an even bigger impact on the team. And not like he didn't. When he played at right back, when he played at left back, he was exceptional. It wasn't like suddenly at right center back he's just performing and before he wasn't. He was amazing at fullback too, you know, and he'll be amazing as a wingback. So I think we put him there and get Yoro in for sure would be the best fit for everybody. All right, let's end it there, guys. Thank you for hanging out with me today. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I'll be back, as I said, tomorrow morning for a video and then a pre-match one and then a watch along. So it'll be a lot of time spent on video tomorrow. I hope you all have a good day. Yeah, stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, and thank you for watching. I will see you all in the next one. Have a good one.